Hello everyone, more moveset modding here. Today we're going to be looking at multiple ways to modify the actual effect of an effect. I'll just call it effect data modifiers. So anyways, you need to open up the file dump that you've made in the arena where you want to mod people. I'm not going to go through this process because if you don't know how to make a file dump in Emuhaste, you probably shouldn't be watching this tutorial in the first place. Because this is going to put hours and hours of time into creating a moveset that suits your liking. But more on that later. So, you'll want to bring up this window with Shift and 3 and put in the UCM of who you want to find. As is standard for moveset mods, you'll want to go to this line once you've arrived. Put it in that window. Now, search for the effect you want to modify. I'm modifying Axel's get back attack in this scenario, but I may go through multiple characters depending on how not lazy that I am with this video. So 53A. Now get to the point where you're at the effect itself. So, rather than modifying this, we're going to copy the data of this. We're gonna press G to make that window appear, and we're gonna go here. So, there's not many helpful markers here. Actually, there are none. The only helpful markers you get here is when you've scrolled all the way down through the data of it, and you arrive at the bar of another animation and effect. This is how you know that all the effect data has been passed. So right here, this is the data we were led to. You'll want to memorize this so you don't get lost. I would suggest writing down the data here on this line so you know where to go. Now then, there are multiple things here to modify, and I'm gonna go through quite a bit of them, but I don't know everything about it myself, and additionally, not all effect data is the same. What I mean by this is, unlike in the movesets where there are dummy values for everything, each individual effect has its own unique set of properties to it, which means not all effect lines are going to be the same. So it's really difficult to actually make a tutorial on this once you go down further. I'll explain more on that later. Okay, enough rambling. Let's break down each of these individually. So, as for the first line, I can't really go into detail about it because changing anything just really messes with the properties. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you can make a character move further when you change anything. Sometimes you can make them move faster. Sometimes you screw up the hitbox, like so many other things on here. So yeah, if you have nothing better to do, you can just mess with the data on the first line until something good happens for you. I'm sure there's random crashes that can result from this, but you know, that's hacking for you. So right now I'm messing with the second part of Axel's desperation move, where he dashes a bit and then slams the ground with fire pillars. So if you change that, this is just one example by the way, but if you change that and actually performs the desperation move any day now. Okay, so you know sometimes it cancels it out, but see, like I said, this line of code is really weird. So let it play out more than once just to make sure. And if you notice there, he no longer has that delay on his speed before he slams the ground, so it actually comes out faster. So yeah, that's an interesting change. And I'm not sure what this does at all. Oh yeah. So yeah, a lot of the times when you mess with this, you'll probably just screw up the attack, but you know, you should try some stuff out, because you might get some really cool results from it. So yeah, that's the first line. The second line, right here, this is the second line in the effect data, and this has two unique properties to it, each generated by 4 digits again. I won't get into the first 4 digits right now. Let's talk about the last 4. This is actually the amount of frames before the hitbox actually comes out from the move. So an interesting thing to note is you can set to 0, 1 and the attack will come out faster. Notice how he's instantly dealing damage as soon as he performs the animation. I should probably do a comparison. So you can also make the hitbox take longer to come out as well by increasing the number on here. Now it's coming out on a later frame. So you know, you can either nerf or buff an attack. Do note though, this does not increase or decrease the duration of the hitbox unless you delay it and the animation ends before the full hit would come out. But making it come out earlier does not extend the hitbox. It just makes it come out faster. So, two lines down from where you arrived. This is the third line of the effect data modifier, and this is my personal favorite. This is actually an attack modifier. So, what you can do with this, we'll copy the address. Now, there is really no good effect I found from modifying the last 4 digits. There have been occasional breakthroughs on my part. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a breakthrough. Honestly, you should usually just leave the last 4 digits as is. What's really interesting is the first 4 digits, specifically the 3rd and the 4th, since these seem to give me the most results. So, what an attack modifier does is it allows you to change how an attack actually deals damage and knockback, but it does not change the hitbox. Although if you input certain things, it just won't have a hitbox anymore. That's kind of an adverse effect for a lot of inputs. That's why every single time you make a change, you will need to test if it still has a hitbox. So, for example, by default, that's Axel's get back attack, as I'm sure many people who have fought against him know. Please let me hit you. Okay, that's nice. Alright, now there are a lot of things to note with this, but first off, let's change this to one of my favorites for Axel's get back, 79F. Now as you may be able to notice, this changes the sound and where you're knocked back to, but again, the hitbox is still the same. Also, notice how this has an effect to where Sora is still getting hit by the attack even after he's staggered. Now, if we change it back to his normal get back hitbox, you'll notice he can't constantly hit the player around. See how I had no staggering there? This is one of the many effects of attack modifiers, is that you can actually go through a player's otherwise invincibility. So that's one effect. Not every change to it will have this effect though. On the other hand, you can get extreme knockbacks as well, at the expense of it only being like a single hit. Again, this is just one of the many examples. But when he says get back, he really does launch you back, so that one was just kind of something neat I wanted to show. So we try 6F. You notice this is a modified hit. This is a modified attack, but it can't spam staggers on Sora. I really wish he'd attack fast enough so I didn't look like a liar. Yeah, there. Okay, so one thing you should probably know about attack modifiers though, some inputs will cause a game crash. So I would recommend having a music playing when you're doing this, or your volume low, so when you make a modification you don't randomly have a heart attack. Now, like I said before, modifying the last 4 digits has some pretty weird results, which is why I don't normally mess with them. Here is one example. Yeah, now I can't even throw out the attack. So that's why I don't usually mess with the last 4, as I stated previously. One other thing to keep in mind, that thing where some attacks don't stagger the player after being launched out. One thing you should keep in mind, you don't really have to worry about that for bosses. Bosses will get staggered all the time if they don't have sturdy frames out or iframes, things like that. Oops. Yeah, see how he gets staggered by the normal get back? So, only worry about frequently staggering attacks if you're making your boss hack to be against a player. Otherwise, do as you please. So that's all for attack modifiers. This is one of the best ways to improve a boss hack though, because there's really just a lot of things you can do. Let me show some effects of changing the 4th digit though, because there are a bunch of effects. See, sometimes you can also make them weak hits instead of critical hits, which, you know, that's an interesting effect. And it's not exclusive. That's not exclusive to the 4th digit though. One other interesting thing you can do with attack modifiers, if you can't seem to find a good value for your data, you can go to a different effect. To get back to where you were before, you can press the left key multiple times until you arrive back to the line where you would copy the data to go to the animation pool. So, let's say you don't like any of the effects for get back, or yeah, attacks. Well, why don't we go to his desperation move? 2 lines down, copy the data. Now remember, this is an attack modifier, not a hitbox modifier. So the hitbox itself will stay the same so it doesn't look awkward, but you get a different knockback effect. Or it could just not work. I mean, that's also a thing that could happen. There we go. One of those trial and error things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this at least gives you something else to mess around with now, because now you know. So now you can try values similar to what a different attack had. Probably also less likely to get a crash as well. Anyways, that's all for attack modifiers. Earlier on, we discussed how to bring out a hitbox faster. However, there is one problem with this. It does not bring out the effect instantly, but there is a way to fix that. However, this is where things start getting rather tricky. See, every attack in the game, as I stated before, has its own unique properties. Meaning, if an attack generates multiple effects, there's going to be a lot more lines. It'll be a lot more difficult to find out through all that mess which effect is on which line. However, there are a few ways to discern which is which. So, for starters, to find where the effects line starts, look for the data of a line to begin with 0101 or end in 0101. So, we go down a bit. Here we have a line that has 0101 in it, and then afterwards there's an effect. So 0101 is basically executing the effect, so you never want to get rid of that unless you just want to get rid of an effect altogether. I haven't thoroughly tested that though, so do as you will. But obviously, since we're having Roxas's Miss Clear be the attack that comes out like frame 1. We want to get that effect. Well, if we look at all the effects that play there, it's clear that the mist comes out towards the end of the animation. That means we want to look for a larger number than the others, because that'll separate it from which ones happen shorter in the animation. So we have effects at 34, 34, 38, 39, and now there's one at 62. So that's a suspicious one that we should check out. So leave the 0101 in there, that's listed right there, and then instead of 62, put it at 01, so it comes out on the first frame of the attack. So let's see if that's it. Not quite. That was a different effect that happened on the same frame. So let's try this line, since there's an effect that also comes out on whatever frame 62 equals in hex. Anyways, here another effect is executed from this line, so you don't have to worry about not being able to change 62 or 3A, since these are also effects. So let's try changing this to 0001, make it come out on frame 1, and we'll leave 3A as it is. So let's see if this is the mist. Perfect. So we have an attack and well, now two effects that come out on the first frame. So it makes it look more like it's an attack that was intended to come out on the first frame. It flows better, essentially. However, there is one other issue. He says take that, still in the same position. So that leads into the next thing. An additional thing you can do with all of this modding of effects is that you can actually make a voice clip happen sooner, and you can even make the boss choose a different voice clip from their arsenal to use during an attack. In order to find the lines for voice clips, you need to look at the data, and you need to look for 020D as either the first 4 digits or the last 4 digits. So if we go down, we'll see 2 uses of 020D for Roxas's Miss Clear. So if we look here, we can see 5F for this one and 0000 at the end of this one. Now, since this is a larger value, it comes later in the animation, which means that it's probably the take that clip. Now, some bosses have the timing to play the voice clip after 020D, and some have it before. I don't really know why, but you'll just have to do a little bit of extra testing. And around there is also the actual clip that the boss will choose to play. So let's set take that to frame 1, since we're making this attack come out frame 1. Make sure you leave 020D where it was before, and then instead of 5F we'll put 01 again. Let's see if this works. There we we go. So we moved it. Now, rather than it being take that, we can change it to something else. I imagine it is 14. It's the line of 14 because there's no large values to their voice clips. So let's try changing this to 15 and see what he says. Okay. That's something. Yeah. So basically you can make whatever voice clip you want to play as long as, you know, the boss actually has it. And then you can change what time it plays. Guess he's out of lines now. Yeah, if you input a value, if you input a large value and he's silent, that means they don't have any voice clips at that value or beyond it. Most likely, anyways. Yeah. Also, from some amount of testing on this, it seems like the smallest values are the grunts for when they get hit. So, those probably won't come in handy. That was messy. Alright. Combine that with like a fast animation change, which those who have watched previous tutorials already know how to do, and you will have a fast misclear. So that concludes the voices. Alright everyone, that's going to conclude this tutorial. One final thing I want to point out is when you're writing reproduction digits, as far as I can tell, every single value in these modifiers is a constant. So rather than try to write something, rather than try to write like offset plus or offset minus, just write like 53A's base effect line 1 equals, and then put whatever you have into the hex. Like for this, you know, rather than 00886, I'd write like, oh, baseline 1 equals 00960708. You know, that was what I made for the modification. Alright. Good luck. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. I know there's still more to this, but I haven't had a chance to test like everything, and again, every effect is different. So yeah, good luck. Enjoy.